computer. She's got that on recording. You're the best, Joanne. Turn this on. If you'd like,
Tell her
a piece
that all
of
the
pizza, please
time.
do.
I definitely will.
Is everything ready for everyone?
Would you like a piece of pizza? I'll bring you one.
Dinner.
Should have brought dessert for you, right? Where is, let's see if this is gonna turn.
Since we're talking about the movie, how about Schnauz?
Yeah.
Hi, Richard. How are you?
Good.
Good, Dick?
Okay. Yeah, no. We have a very short agenda, but a lot of work. A lot of thinking to do.
If you want suggestions about ordinances,
Yeah, that's why we're here.
I got a couple crazy ones.
That's all right, crazy or not. Here you go. It's the agenda. Adam said that he would be here, so. And I'm not sure Jen's gonna be here. Corinne went to Oakham today night,
Who did? Oh, she's still
Corinne.
there?
I guess. Yeah, I think it was this evening. Let me just get my piece of
Why didn't I
paper.
go? They asked me to go with.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Sue, when we lived there, I used to have a beer man come to the house. Yeah.
Does he have beer in the house? Oh.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna run in home because I would get pizza.
Jim drinks beer.
I never drove to Russell so quickly.
You've always said time getting into that pizza, did?
Go ahead and grab a piece. So it is 6:04 and I'm going to start the Energy Committee meeting. Sure, come on in. You want to say something?
I didn't want to interrupt you.
All right.
Say hi, John.
Hey, Randall.
I said pizza.
So she's gonna print these out
Yeah.
for the select board, the signature paper that we're gonna sign,
Okay.
Pete and I and Steven.
Yes.
And then she'll move this down, you guys can sign off on it. Here's a question that she wants to. You kind of said when we know what we're signing, is with the amendments.
Still got a pen and
Fine. Want all this to go. I don't want to confuse.
Yeah. Let me take a look.
Look, I Googled that LLC
If she
there.
sent that to
Farm
me,
East.
I can
Did you
take a look.
Google it?
Okay.
You don't get much information.
No,
They're dealer farms, but
the good news, it doesn't look like they're solar, but.
not till the trees are down.
Right.
Oh, is that nice?
Looks like we might be able to fade it though. Save that, preserve that. Working Mass Audubon and Mass Wildlife are very interested in it.
Okay. For people that are gonna watch this, you're gonna watch this. Okay. So the purpose, what we really wanted to do was focus on bylaws and. You know, we brainstorm, we come up with conditions, I'll make a list of the conditions. But I really wanted the session to be kind of, put it out there what you're thinking. Now, what I added in your packet, what I put in your packet are copies of the sections of the bylaws that we already have, just so you have it at your disposal. There is information in there that Christina has looked up, which were bylaws that she had seen got declined by. She would have did a little research to find out what has been declined in the past from the Attorney General's office. So just some supporting evidence of what others have attempted to do. What were declined. So I would prefer that this meeting be more about like, where I have something to write on and we could just brainstorm over some of the different things that we really want to focus on. But since we don't have that set up in this room that way, we're gonna do it while I'm sitting and I'll make notes as we go along. What are your guys' thoughts about how to approach this? Yes.
Want a couple nasty ordinances that town could pass?
Sure. What you got?
First of all, the state. There's no statewide, to my knowledge, noise ordinances. Noise ordinance,
Noise ordinance.
and I think, I don't think it would be very difficult to pass a noise ordinance. And also,
Thought somebody said there was something that we had, but no chainsaw.
There is a noise ordinance out of the BOH. Is that right? Jen's area.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, so there is something, don't know whether or not it's,
we can go beyond that.
okay,
And you can't export a certain number of decibels over the property line. And also, every site should have a metal tag. I know, for housing, people that lease housing, they're required in most communities to have a metal tag with contacts. You know, the owner, if there's a problem, how you can contact them. That should be a given on every site.
That's actually in other zoning bylaws in other towns.
Excuse me?
is it in ours today?
It's not.
Okay.
It's actually in other zoning bylaws in
Then
other
it should be
towns.
enforced.
It's not in our town. We need to write it in.
And here's the most controversial one that I came up with. An ordinance to, no products should come from forced labor, slave labor, or exploited children's labor. I got a feeling it would pass easily in the town. Whether it's enforceable or not, we find out. You know, if somebody
What was it? Forced labor, exploited labor?
exploited labor and children's labor. I mean, that cobalt comes from little kids in Africa, 8, 9-year-old kids. And most of the panels, solar panels produced in Sichuan province by Uyghurs, forced labor for Uyghurs. So, you know, you could put that in there, vote on it, put it on the books and see what happens. Right?
Okay. This is just, right now, we're just gonna like throw stuff out, right? So, thank you, Richard. What other things have you guys been thinking about, if anything?
So can we make districts in the town where things, whatever proposed facilities would be allowed and where they would not be allowed.
We should. Other towns have done that too. I was just reading the thing today. I have it here, I printed it because
And
I'm not good. with
the other thing
computers.
I would add is there ways to minimize clear cutting of mature forest areas? Like if you say, for instance, if you're gonna develop a site with best, and it's a 50-acre site, could you require that they have to maintain like 50% of it vegetated and wooded? Which you can't just go in and blow it all down, like we have seen in the past.
Okay. Well, what we'll do after we brainstorm, then we'll go back and kind of like refine and look and see, how we would want to write it up. And I can make the first pass with
Yeah.
trying to write something up. What else?
So the other thing that came up in our conservation commission meeting the other night is, I was surprised that people didn't know this, is the town can have its own wetlands bylaw. It goes above and beyond what the state requires.
Mhm.
And it seemed like there was some interest from people, the public who was at that meeting, pursuing that. It's something we've brought up in the past, but I mean, frankly, we feel like our plates are full with just dealing with the state regulations.
Right.
But if you add a new layer of more complication of a local wetland bylaw, I mean, a fair number of city and towns have done it, so it's not like we're reinventing the wheel. I'm sure there's a lot of model bylaws out there we could adopt, so.
And it can actually supersede the state,
Mhm.
really, wow.
In fact, a lot of the state forms that we work with for wetlands, it specifically asks, like, for instance, where they come to us with a request for determination, it will ask right here, does the town have its own municipal bylaw? So
Okay.
that's something I think is worth pursuing. It probably would be in zoning, it would be under the conservation commission, but carefully aligned with what this committee is doing, I think.
Yeah. Right, you thought about, or Richard, go ahead. Had your
Yeah.
comment.
Just so you know. Mission. I guess that's the company that's proposing the batteries.
Right.
You know who they're funded by? Wayfront.
It's-
140. And you know who they are? The pension from Kuwait. And they've won awards, the pension. It's like a $27 billion sovereign fund, sovereign wealth fund. And they've won awards for being good Sharia practitioners. So just so you know, just a little aside.
Mhm.
But the most important thing that should be as a criteria for proving that site is insurance. And I don't mean insurance to make the investors whole, but heavy amount of liability insurance to make people in the town whole. And it should be a sizable amount. And if they balk and say there's no risk, well, then the insurance premium should be very low to reflect that low risk. But I don't think so. I think the premium would be extremely high. And I got that idea from someone who was making a tour of the Palisades, and there was some homes there. Some of them were beautiful, built in the 1920s, that were fully intact, but they had to be stripped down to the rafters because all the toxins that got into the behind the sheetrock and inside, the floors. So they have to be stripped, and the homeowner's insurance didn't nearly cover that. And there's a new profession that I was never aware of. Is these toxic inspectors that go around inspecting. And sending stuff to labs. So that's conceivable that it could happen here. If they had 200 batteries up on that hill. And, one storm, one northeaster could dislodge and start some kind of, problem for us. So insurance, I can't see how the state could deny that request. If something happened, their insurance would pay off to limited liability company. And where would we be, If we survived it, we're, 500 yards from that site.
Anybody else?
I've taken a bit of a different approach in bylaws, because I'm not a lawyer, I'm not very smart in that regard, but I've been asking ChatGPT to analyze our current bylaws
Yep,
and tell me where we're kind of weak, where we can make better improvements.
okay, good,
And it has offered a lot of good feedback, but I
yeah,
don't know how everyone feels about that kind of thing. So, that's kind of the approach I've been taking.
well, honestly, my first step would have been to go and put these into ChatGPT and see what pops up. Because see if someone else out there has already written a bylaw related to some of these subjects, so I'm all for it.
Perfect.
It's just from my experience, it's just a way to consolidate information, so there's
Yeah.
more information there.
Okay.
So what's been your,
So I tried to print out a bunch of stuff, but I ran out of paper after 7 sheets, which was kind of unfortunate, but it gave a lot of different suggestions. Glare studies, noise studies, stormwater and earth road and construction management, vegetation. So it took some of our things that we already do. So it looks like we already limit clearing to 50% and we ban herbicides. And it says we should keep that 50% cap, allow targeted herbicides, require pollinator seed mixing or, to rejuvenate. So
would you be willing to just go make copies for everybody and then we
Sure.
could just kind of walk through them?
where can I do that?
If you go right down this hallway on the left before you get through the doors, there's a door and that goes into
Okay,
I don't know if it's open.
yeah, that's perfect.
It's not open.
I know what it
Any?
is. Yeah, I can open it. If it's not, then I can show you how to use it.
Thank
Real quick.
Another thing on my list, taxes. I know that solar farms have an abatement, tax abatement for 20 years. And they're able to pay under this pilot program, but the best, they're really their purpose is for arbitrage. To buy and sell in different markets.
Yeah,
It's a commercial operation.
right.
And I don't see why they should get favorable tax treatment. I mean, that's gonna be $100 million investment thereabouts to and why they should pay at a tax rate, significantly less than what homeowners in Wallingford have to pay. I mean, you suggested a price that they offered, and I'm not sure. I started to call the Department of Revenue and got to run around. So I wanted to call the Mass Municipal Association. And
Sit down.
it's the other.
I know my key doesn't work anymore. Sorry.
Keep going, yep.
Also, how are they gonna be taxed? Those containers aren't real property, they're personal property. Anything fixed to the land is real property. So you know, that's a big question mark. How are they? A
I'm
lot of jurisdictions I was reading, legal analysis of, but this is nationwide, only have to pay, personal property taxes on the containers. They sit on top of pads.
right,
They're not, you know, they're not fixed to the land.
Mm.
So that, you know, could exclude them as real property. Incidentally, the people at the demonstration told me that each one of those 200 containers puts out between 85 and 100 decibels of noise. I know collectively, you know, they don't add, but, you know, there's some constructive interference and destructive you know, in terms of sound. But they still would be noisy. And it's a residential area.
so what did they say?
Some kind of
puts out?
noise ordinance
Right,
needs to be put in place, something.
you look like you had some concern over the tax.
Well, the whole pilot thing, I mean, isn't that like a whole other subject unto itself? I mean, from some of the email I've seen in the last couple of days, it looks like the town needs to like get its arms around that whole.
Yeah. I think I put something in your packet of the existing pilot. One of them, I couldn't get the other ones. I've got to call Harold and see if we can get copies of the other ones that were already done. I'm not an expert on those pilots. I don't even know who wrote that particular contract. But it is something that this team should look at
Yeah.
and bring in the appropriate experts to talk about.
Now, you were asking me about the land. You know, if there was a leasehold interest underneath, you were talking about the owner of the land.
Yeah,
That would be a fee interest. And I think that could get taxed separately. And, you know, you wouldn't tax it as just plain ordinary undeveloped land. You would need to look at lease payments and take and base the valuation on those lease payments. You take, you know, in financial parlance, the discounted cash flow, you would take a discount rate and then apply that to a valuation, and then you would apply the tax rate against that if the appraiser does his job.
but I think we need to have a full discussion around the
Yeah,
whole
I'm
calculation.
just bringing things up.
No, that's great, because I'll make note and we'll make sure we,
So is
Track it.
the pilot, the concept of a pilot, is it a requirement? Do we know? 'Cause I asked that because it's the one existing solar project that we don't have a pilot with. And I've always asked, why do we not have a pilot agreement with one of the solar operators?
I'll ask the question though. I'm assuming Harold's gonna know, the assessor.
Hmm,
Don't know.
I mean, do we know from the state, is there a requirement that these companies enter into some sort of an agreement with us for a pilot, or is it like optional? That's,
It seems to be it seems to be a norm for those vendors to come in and say, right,
mhm.
here's what we'll pay you in the pilot. So they immediately assume they're gonna do payment in lieu of taxes. So I don't know if it is a norm. It may be, may not be. I don't know if we make more money off a pilot than we would if we taxed them also. I mean, certainly if you just do a basic math on the assessors of the property, let's take the existing one that sits out there, which is 75 acres, I think. You know, if you do the math on that, it's not gonna come close to what they pay in the pilot,
Mhm.
because it's based on the value of the property.
Do we know which one is not in the pilot? Do we know which one is not in the pilot program?
don't know,
Yeah, it's
You
the
know?
one on North Blanford Road,
The
okay,
little one.
the little one.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that
and we
was the
get
first
about.
One too, I think.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, I pulled the numbers, and I shared them with, Dave, Hobson last night. And he says I'm in the ballpark, so that one we get about 27,000 for a year
For the little one.
for the little one. Yeah, I think, the larger one is 80. If I'm not mistaken, I'm just
I
trying to
saw
think,
that, I saw this figure.
Yeah. um,
I mean, just historically, I mean, when the Conservation Commission was dealing with that particular company, they were extremely difficult to deal with.
well,
I wonder if there's a standard, some sort of a standardized formula that's used for pilots elsewhere.
I've asked that question a million
And
times, never got an
I,
answer.
I've been thinking about it, they should be revisited like every 2 years, right? With some sort of documentation of what these companies are making, what our percentage is off that, say it's like a tax.
Yeah, I think there's a built-in
I mean, that's
escalator,
fair,
there's a built-in escalator, I think, to the ones we have, but again,
but it's minimal.
I have no idea what.
Yeah.
What the
What you
formula
gotta
is.
look at is, they have, after they build this thing. They'll probably lease. The land from Tony. So that lease probably will be recorded, I don't know if they'll put an amount in there. But that lease will be recorded. And with the town, if the town taxes that, you just send them what you think is appropriate for a bill. And make it higher. And if he screams, then ask him to provide the documentation. For, for the value. And then,
You could probably pull that out there.
yeah, Mission will build that project. And their value will be based on what they call outtake agreements or tolling agreements, I guess, to one and the same. Because they're gonna lease it to someone else. And from that, you can determine what it's worth. You value it by the income, not by the, but by the machine, the machines that are sitting there.
right?
In other words, like a
I'm
bond,
taxing them on
only
the,
it's a variable.
on the income.
Got it.
I mean, it would take a pretty good appraiser to figure that out, but they're out there.
I think there's a lot in this area that we need to delve into and make
There
sure
is.
we have all the facts, right? And some. One of the things I was thinking about myself today, actually, when I was putting some of the stuff together, was reaching out to the other towns and their boards to see, share with us what pilots you guys have done and how those have been created. And we should be sharing as much as we can to get to the best possible solution.
Springfield's on a pilot, right?
Springfield
watershed?
water is
Yeah.
pilot, yeah. But, so that's one that we have, all the solar projects that are out there, a couple of them are pilots
Two
as
of them,
well.
right.
Um,
Who else is, that's why, who else is doing?
I think
pot-
that's
the
what
pot
I'm
farms
talking
are-
about,
The marijuana farms are marijuana business.
I don't know, I think they may be,
Yeah.
I don't think there's a pilot with that,
I think
but
that's,
there's usually pilots with watershed property that, like Springfield, there's usually pilots with state-owned property, like for state forests, things like that.
Russell owns a lot of land.
Right, so, but again, I have no sense of what the calculation is.
right, I'd like to see,
If you look at the numbers, it looks like they're getting a pretty good deal.
um,
I have a feeling this whole exercise is gonna be. An uphill battle. Because I think the fix is in. I listened to a webinar for insiders, underwriters. Loan underwriters, and he was a loan officer for Nord LB Bank, German bank. That finances a lot of these best projects all over the world. And, you know, he was expressing, to the interviewer, the guidelines for funding one of these projects. And at the end, he said something very telling. The interviewer asked him, "What do you worry about?" And he said, "A gas pipeline coming in and undercutting." So what they depend on are high prices. I mean, look at your electric bill. It's doubled 2.5 times, 12 cents a kilowatt hours. Now we're paying 30 cents a kilowatt. That's 2.5 times. And it's all planned. Hydro-Quebec offered to bring cheap, clean electric power. They got a surplus of power. They've been building dams in Labrador and northern Quebec since the 1940s. And they're just chomping at the bit to sell electricity to the US. And both of those projects got turned down. And first of all, there'd be no need for solar if you got cheap electricity here. Number two, our governor, when she was Attorney General, killed at least 2 pipelines. And I think through Tallinn and Granville, they wanted to expand that pipeline from here to here, and that got turned down. And every pipeline gets turned down. And if you listen to the legislation that's listed in your little thing that I gave you earlier, one of the things is that when pipelines need to be upgraded, they're asking to do other alternatives. And another thing is, if you don't think it's viable to bring Hydro-Quebec power, New York City just cut a deal with Hydro-Quebec, and they broke ground to bring a transmission line underneath Lake Champlain into New York City. New York City is bigger than Massachusetts, and you know, cheap power. So there's alternatives to all this baloney, but this is all by design. That, you know, the powers of the legislature and the governor's office are making the state safe for solar power and best projects by keeping those prices up high. Just look at your bill and see how much goes to Mass Save of the distribution charges. Nobody ever paid attention to that stuff. You know, I started looking at it, you know, since in June. I never paid attention, didn't know anything about BESS. And it's all out there in this
It's a
legislation.
high percentage.
Start reading the legislation. And also, we should get a copy of what's that law? The one that passed, S 2967, passed in the Senate. And try to find a sponsor. They'll give you some phony environmental group. Nobody wants to put their name on this stuff. You know, they sneak it through after the election and during a lame duck session. And they call it democracy, you know, so the fix is in for this. So I think this group has got an uphill battle trying to stop these projects. I just saw today Winchester, Mass is getting hit with a BESS project. So
We were told that and I've seen it a lot in writing, it's gonna be an uphill battle. We're not gonna be able to stop it. But we can manage it.
how are you gonna manage it? What are you gonna do?
You're gonna try to make some bylaws to,
Ask them to pass out gas masks if something happens.
well,
It's that serious. I mean, every day.
I know, but you know what, we can't. We're not gonna go after the laws, we're gonna try to pass some bylaws to protect our town and manage it in our town. That's what we need to do, that's what we need to focus on here. Right,
I wrote one.
we're gonna have a little bit of time to do this, to write some bylaws. Get it through the process of write the bylaws, get it to our attorneys, have them check it, get it to the AG, have them scratch out what they don't like, redo some parts of it. Do it, throw as much stuff in it it's like throwing stuff at the wall, see what sticks. And do the best that we can here. If you wanna fight those bigger battles, Richard, that's, you know, do that on your own. That's how I feel about it right now. I'm working for the town. I don't care about the federal government. I don't care about the state government and that kind of crap.
I'm
I'm
just
not gonna fight those.
giving you the facts.
I don't, okay,
Those are the
that's
facts.
fine. I've been reading a lot too. I know what the facts are, but I know what we need to do here too. So. I think we need to stay on track and try to write some bylaws that are gonna stick,
One ally
right?
we should have, should be sitting at this table is the Springfield Water Works. And their silence is deafening. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't even fart next to that reservoir without getting arrested. And they own 18,000 acres in this town. And
I looked at it, 8,000,
8,000,
8.
on the website, it says 18,000.
In this
That's
town.
part Palmer.
Maybe part of it's in Granville, but the part in Blandford is 8,000.
That's enough,
It's a quarter of the town, yes.
that's enough.
Right, but they're not gonna write our bylaws. Their interest is
We
their own
need fight
self.
bylaws, we need a fight to stop this thing. You can use bylaws, but there's gotta be a fight. And
Well, look, we're asking for a moratorium so we can write
that's
bylaws.
the bylaws moratorium.
So we need to focus on that first to protect the town, right?
Right.
And brainstorm on how we're gonna do that, how we're gonna write some bylaws that are gonna stick and protect the town the best we can. I got copies of projects that weren't approved by planning boards that the state overturned. We can use those for guidelines, see what we can do, what we can't do. We could still throw stuff at the wall, see what sticks. That's my feeling on it. I look at our bylaws, there's stuff in our bylaws that we can,
Improve.
yes, we can.
Mhm.
And we can turn up the heat on some of these developers, right? There's the decommissioning thing is a big thing with me. And our bylaws says, I figured out what their decommissioning costs were. Mine didn't even come close. Theirs were way low. Our bylaws said based on
When you say
prevailing
theirs,
wages.
whose are theirs?
Pardon me,
Theirs, ours, or our bylaws are way low, or what? what would
they're
you say
theirs,
there?
what they're proposing.
They're who?
The developers.
Blue Wave,
Develop, okay,
Blue Wave, and that's the ones that are doing Chester Road and
Right.
Huntington Road. But in our bylaws, it says that labor is based on prevailing wages, right?
Mhm.
Prevailing wage just for a general laborer in Massachusetts is $65 an hour.
Right.
Now, right, and that goes up every year by like 3.5%. Their estimates are, they sent in their estimates at 2.5% per year. So I questioned that. I did some research, economy goes up or,
Cost of living.
cost of living goes up over, in the last 5 years, gone up over 4%.
Right,
In the cost, and that was the consumer price index, which takes into account labor, consumer products, stuff like that. So these are some of the bargaining chips we can,
Yeah.
We can go with,
you kind
to
of,
start with.
just to support that, there's two things going on here. There is, do you want to go out and fight the law, basically? Or do you lay out, right, what we can do to do our best to protect ourselves? Whether, to your
Yeah.
point, the liability, the decommissioning, all those things need to be well thought through. When they came up with the bylaws before, it was nowhere near as fast as it's gonna be, based on what we're seeing with volume. So we need to make sure that we have bylaws that we can stand up and say, this is what we really want, right?
Yeah.
But to fight, and we only have, in my opinion, 6 months to do it if we get the 6-month moratorium. the legal has said, if there's anything that you guys need to focus on are your bylaws. That's been their direction to us. If it's marching on Boston and saying, we don't want any of this, that can't be this, we can't do both. We can't do both. There are groups that are doing that right now, marching on,
I'm all for bylaws. I'm total agreement with what you're saying,
and conditions for these vendors.
but I'd rather not see the project there, period.
Understood,
And-
understood.
And Westfield had their project pulled because they got political horsepower to stop it.
Understood.
They also had one, they also had.
We can have political
That was
horsepower.
the issue.
We got allies from, if we can get allies from Springfield Waterworks. Springfield Waterworks serves 250,000 people
Yeah,
in the
I
valley.
agree.
If there's a catastrophe, you don't think they're gonna suffer? Their fight, our fight is their fight, and that's the way I view it.
Not,
And we can do two things. We can walk and chew gum. At the same time, we can do everything you say, but we need allies in this project.
I agree,
And here's a natural ally.
but in the end, they're not gonna write our bylaws. That's what should
But-
focus on here, and getting them as allies on the side, yes.
as
I
a,
agree.
as just to elaborate on that a little bit, I did draft, I don't know if I put it in your packet that I gave you, but I did draft a letter to Joshua Schmill, who is the executive director at Springfield Water. I'm gonna have the board approve it, coming from us. And basically, it talks about the BEST project specifically. It talks about, they being, it says, just to lay it out there, I've written it, on behalf of the board, we're writing to request that Springfield Water and Sewer Commission review the potential impact of the proposed commercial battery energy storage system in Blandford, located near Cobble Mountain Reservoir watershed. As you're aware, the Cobble Mountain Reservoir serves as a critical drinking water source for Springfield and surrounding communities. Given the project's proximity to the sensitive watershed, we believe it's essential to assess any possible risk to water quality, hydrology, and overall watershed integrity. Specifically, we're asking the commission to evaluate the project's location in relation to the watershed boundaries and drainage patterns, potential chemical fire or spill hazards and their pathways to service our groundwater, the adequacy of proposed containment, stormwater, and emergency response measures, and any cumulative or long-term impacts on water stability and water quality. We respectfully request that the commission review all available project materials and share its findings or recommendations regarding potential impacts on the Cobble Mountain Reservoir. The select board would also welcome an opportunity to meet with the commission staff to discuss this review and introduce the commission to the leaders of the project. Thank you for your continued support.
Can I make a,
But let me just say, the way I look at this is that heads up, it's going to the top guy. You either get involved or you don't. That's up to you. But we've done our duty to let you know this is happening. It's not with our person that we deal with day to day.
It showed
you
up
need
in
a
the
closing
first,
statement. You have to ask them to do something, ask them to respond, and send a copy to Sarno. He's the one that, he's the big guy. He appoints those commissioners.
I copied Paul Mark, but go ahead. Go ahead.
They showed up at that first meeting for the substation expansion. That was it, as far as I can tell.
Say
Yeah.
what?
The first meeting for the substation expansion
Yeah.
months ago, they were there. but
Oh, they were.
They weren't. They have not been back to any others that I know.
they were at this, one of the selectmen's meetings early on when this all first kind of came to light, and it was Nicole Sanford, the watershed manager,
Yeah.
and she was asked specifically in this room, what are your thoughts about this? She said, we just have a lot of questions.
My guess
the
is that
response.
she does not have a direct connection with the executive director,
Probably not.
right? I mean, you and I both work for GE. You go to the top guy and say, here it is. Have it what you want, right? But at the end of the day, they're the water experts. We're not. We're not. We can sit here and read all this stuff, but we're not the water experts. Come in here and look at it, right? And tell us what you think. And not only that, we've done we've done our duty to notify the right people. That's why I say, we need to do this, right? If they come back and they say everything's great,
Then we're on our own.
then we're on our own. If they come back and say, we have a problem here, okay. Explain to us what the problem is so we can, figure out what to do next, but. To me, that's the only thing you could do.
I can't understand why they wouldn't have a real vested interest in this.
Maybe,
So do we know, was there any response from them after the local group here in town?
Yeah, Richard knows. He
Um,
was the one that wrote the letter.
excuse me,
were we notified through other channels, Springfield and Mayor Sarno and a bunch of other people?
I disagree with you. I'd go right to the top.
No, I'm saying you were
And
involved with
and
that.
I would call Sino if you want. Give me permission, I'll call him.
No, what I'm saying is there was the local group in town sent some materials out to all the
Yeah, that
towns,
was,
That was Richard.
right?
I'll blame it on Sue.
So do we know collectively, did anybody see any?
Sino sent me a letter.
What did it say?
He said that he forwarded, he appreciated. I should have brought him that. He appreciated it. There's a letter he typed, I think, himself and addressed himself. He appreciated the concern. And he was forwarding the letter to the commission. And he said, and he, in his own hand, he says, God bless and good luck. So I think he's got our sympathies. Did you get a copy of our letter? I think. Did you get a copy of the letter we sent?
I don't think so.
We sent it to the select.
I don't think he has any
something on your mind,
control
Kevin.
over Springfield Water. I don't think he has any control over Springfield Water.
He appoints the commissioner.
Well, the other thing we
Yeah.
could do was run a public notice in the Springfield Union,
And that'll open some eyes, huh?
just state the facts. But just to let people know, this is proposed for Blandford and it's within the footprint of the watershed.
This could be our drinking water.
I think Oakham did the same thing for, cause Oakham is right near Quabbin. So it's kind of the same scenario on a bigger scale, but I don't know. I don't have a feel for,
So what are you suggesting? I'm trying to,
my suggestion is that if there's other ways to like publicize what's potentially,
what's happening?
to the people who receive drinking water from Cobble Mountain Reservoir.
We also sent a letter to the Department of Transportation. Blandford provides the water for the turnpike. What do you think would happen if one of those bad boys went up? All those toxins. There's two brooks there that feed into Cobble Mountain Reservoir. I happen to abut one of the brooks, so it forms my boundary on my property, our property, I should say. I mean, to me, looking at the situation from 30,000 feet, for 80 years, this town has accommodated Cobble Mountain Reservoir. We've suffered tax losses. It's a subsidy to the city of Springfield. They should, in this tough fight, they should be, on our side of the football. And I'm wondering why nothing's happening. Maybe they want to put up some vests on their own properties. But they bought all this land to protect the watershed, and all of a sudden, it's okay to put up something like that. I mean, these things are dangerous.
It's
Yeah.
hard to say what is percolating.
You
That's
find out,
Springfield water. You don't know because we don't work there. You don't know if they're sitting behind closed doors having a discussion about it. There's been no official letter that's gone to them. That's why I wanted to put the official letter out there. They're gonna listen to what's being written in the paper and noise, that they're not gonna do anything unless they're officially requested to do so. That's the way they work,
Yeah.
right?
You find out what they're
So-
thinking by pushing them, by disturbing them.
Understood, but it has to be in an official way, or they're not gonna respond. They're just not.
We'll see.
I mean, unless people, I'm not saying that the residents, this is not a good idea for the residents to do what they're doing, that's fine. I'm just saying that, it's not just Blandford that will be impacted. It's many towns, to your point earlier, which is how do you get more of the officials to be concerned about this? Now, if they could come back and say, we're not worried, and here's why. Okay, lay the facts out. Lay the facts out.
Can I make a suggestion? Not only should we come up with ordinances that like you suggest, which I think is an excellent suggestion, but we should, at the end of this committee, we should have a work product.
For what?
A work product that we can ask, that we can send to other communities that are experiencing the same threats as we are, and see if they'll sign on, and we could forward it to the governor and to the legislature, and to people that will respond. Next year is gonna be an election year. They're gonna be very responsive to what we have to say. If you get several towns that agree, if we put together a work product, why this is a bad idea for this town, in any town, a generic type product. I mean, I'm sure Agawam would sign, Westfield would sign. The mayor has already told, my son works in Westfield as a building inspector. And the mayor already told him that he's very much against these things. Beckett is being threatened with this. Every town.
All the towns are.
All the time.
All the towns, and there's
Everywhere.
no town that wants this.
Everywhere in Massachusetts.
That's why they snuck this through the legislature.
Well, it didn't get snuck through. This act got signed in 2018.
Right. It's just.
By
now
Charlie
coming
Baker.
To a head.
That's a different law. I got it right here.
Anyway, I think the letter is,
That's irrelevant, really. We can't fight
Are
it.
you good with that letter? Do
Yeah.
you see anything else that we
No,
should change in
no.
that letter?
and I would just add, I mean, I've gotta believe that Springfield Water and Sewer has gotta be concerned about this.
Me too.
And I just wonder if they're waiting for the right, I mean, it's all like sort of fuzzy and kind of up in the air right now. Nothing's, I mean, they haven't filed for any permits, it's just them talking to us. I got a feeling when the rubber meets the road and there's something more concrete happening, that they're gonna show up.
Right.
Because
I think so,
from the
too.
dealing we always have with them, with the Conservation Commission, and for me, living right near the watershed property and talking to people down there that come and go, they're like paranoid about protecting that property.
Oh,
Literally.
I'm right in the middle of it.
We can't even look at it.
Pretty
anymore.
much.
We used to be able to look at it.
I just can't believe that they would just sit back and let this happen.
Yeah,
It's
there's
gotta be a
nothing-
timing thing or something along.
You know,
Right, I can tell you
Yeah.
officially that there's nobody from this town, from an official level that has contacted Springfield Water. They may have had a discussion with Nicole, but they haven't really talked to executives at Springfield Water. and
Nicole's
that's what
kind of
they
the
said.
caretaker of the land.
That's right.
Basically,
Right.
doesn't have any real authority,
So,
you
but
know.
as we're talking about this, and Trey, you haven't said anything, so I'm waiting for you to say something. I know you have those, and we could definitely get copies. There's almost like, I'm getting the sense, and this is just open dialogue, right? We're just talking through it. There's the best project, then there's solar projects. Best being with a lot of unknowns and concerns, right? And then there's the solar project, which we've had one for a number of years on 75 acres that no one's said anything about since it's been out there that I know of. Nor caused any challenges.
That,
So, yeah,
that was the question I had, was after these fields are in, are there any problems? I know there are problems putting them in
What's the question? What?
with the solar fields. after they're installed. Have there been any problems? And I don't, they probably won't report to either one of you guys, but.
Not that,
I haven't been around.
not that we know of, but I mean,
But what,
at least from a conservation commission, once they're in and we issue what's called a certificate of compliance. With the permit that we issue them,
you're done.
we're out. Unless we observe something or be made aware of
Someone
something.
complains. or-
But they sit there and they don't do anything, so.
The challenge, I think, is that, and this is something that we've talked about, is the lack of follow-up in the town. But wait a minute, when it comes to anything that's access, okay? This is the feedback I've gotten, lack of follow-up. So if there is something out there in the fields right now that we should be concerned about that we didn't agree with, and let's say the pilot, who knows? Because nobody goes out there and looks.
Trey. So a solar field, it's monitored, from what you know,
From what I know.
yeah. Pretty much 24/7.
So based on what we talked about in our last meeting, we were wondering about who owns the land the solar fields are on and such. Is the landowner would typically have a point of contact based on what I know about wind turbines. Everyone who has a wind turbine on their land has a contact with the developer or the wind farm owner, like in Kansas, everyone,
Sure.
farmers, anyway. All these lands are owned by the developers.
The
So,
three we have, yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't report to anyone. There's no land, unless they had an issue with the land itself and the need for town hall, they're autonomous. The solar fields run themselves, they monitor it, but if they need service, they send their own people. They would have no
Right.
interaction with
But
the
we
town.
don't know if if there's erosion down there, or is there
Right.
anything going on?
Exactly
There's-
my point. So
that-
there's no contact with the town. If they abandoned it, we wouldn't know.
Right.
If they're, yeah, so.
Because we don't know what power is coming off of it or anything, right? We're completely oblivious to what's going on down there. So that's why I think the bylaws are even more important, that we can have some insight as to what's going on in these, because if they're popping up all over the place, you have to have oversight. What if I'm just making something up, and I know I'm on camera, I hate to do this, but I'm gonna do it anyway. The long-eared bats move down there, okay? Well, who's watching that and monitoring such a thing?
Here, I'm thinking the one on Chester
You know what I
Road.
mean? Stuff like that changes.
What if someone comes around that curve too sharp on the ice and drives into the solar field? Who do you contact?
So,
What's in the proposal, they're supposed to have contact numbers. To be determined
what?
always,
Yeah.
because the way these LLCs work, they sell out to somebody else and they sell out to someone else, they change management with the, so.
They must do their own periodic inspections of these things.
The proposal says they do. Quarter to
And I
quarter.
mean, it sounds like we need to.
Yeah, but
build-
they're only doing it, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, we could build into a new bylaw some requirement that
They report back.
if they're doing periodic. Maintenance or inspection and maintenance program that the town needs to be. A part of that.
Annual report or something like that, or.
I
third-party
would, I would take it further that we need to directly participate in
Yeah.
it.
The compliance officer in this town for zoning, you know who it is?
Building inspector.
Yeah. So he works for like 5 other towns,
Yeah,
right?
that's-
And he lives in Huntington. He has no vested interest in Blanford. He could care less. I shouldn't say that. I don't know for a fact. But
I understand.
just human nature, he doesn't have a lot of time.
Well, no, that bandwidth, right? You can't do it if you don't have any time.
I think
Right,
right,
has to give
half a day a
time.
week,
What's that?
half a day a week at most,
Yeah,
so.
yeah. And and we're not really, we're
Today,
paying them.
right? I
So
mean,
that's a real weak point as far as looking at compliance and stuff. like that.
Well, I mean, that could kind of dovetails into the position we've talked about, the town planner /
Right.
conservation agent. That could be a role for that person, if that ever comes to pass. That we have such a person on staff in town, that person could be tasked with contacting the owners of these facilities and say, hey, we wanna come in and take a look.
Well, and this, just throw it out there, we're brainstorming is when we do these pilots, we should put it, that's part of the condition is that they would have to pay a portion of an individual to be responsible at the town level for that. Because, I mean, the goal, if I were to put a goal up on the wall here is town should have to pay for anything when it comes to these things, period. That's just, I just don't see that we should be paying for something like this, adding manpower. We should be saying, you're gonna pay, if you come in here, you're gonna pay one quarter, one half of a person to manage this, that kind of thing, as part of the conditions. So, and if it happens to be a shared resource, then they pay a portion of that or whatever. Until you get a full-time person, depending on how many of these things you have.
It could work something like what we do with the peer reviewers, right? We take a fee, we put it in escrow and draw out of that
Third party do it.
for engineers and stuff like that, so.
So
They could
Jack,
do that on an annual
just-
basis.
Circle back, so you said Christine has done some research on other towns' bylaws.
Yes.
That have been rejected by the AG.
Correct.
And that have been accepted.
Yeah, it's in your,
So do we know if there's anything like what we're just talking about in those? I mean, we don't have to answer it now, but I just
yeah, we can.
throw that out there that,
I'll go through.
maybe other towns.
It's in your,
Oh, is it?
yeah, packet.
Okay.
I mean, I would suggest, it's already 7:05, so I would suggest that I put this in there just for ease, when you're in front of the TV or something, read it, right? Versus kill you with emails. But I would say there's probably some other research that we might want to do on that as well. And what I'll do, I think what we'll do, Trey, is I'm gonna put with my notes, your stuff. Okay?
Yep.
And that way, when we reconvene again at another meeting, we can start really digging in to the different bylaws and saying what we want to change. I know tonight was just really kind of getting our heads around it. For example, let's just take the example of the Chester Road, the solar that's subject to possibility down on Chester Road.
People's Brook.
Lloyd's?
Lloyd's, yeah, that's Martin.
The one thing that people really get upset about from the feedback I've received is, I don't want to look at it. Okay, what's beautiful to one person isn't beautiful to another. I don't want to look at it. These things are going to be 10, 12 feet tall, from what I understand, 15 feet tall. And bylaws can be written to where they are subject to making sure that no one can see it. That's those types of things. If that hadn't been downtown, this is a main drag for everybody to drive, would it get as much attention?
If it's buried in the woods.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So, and what's happening here, at least this is Jackie's observation, and based on the feedback, right, that we're getting from these vendors, is they want to be as close to that substation as they can be because it's the cheapest way to hook up, right? What's that tell you? They're gonna get closer and closer to town.
Town council mentioned in that meeting that we had our agricultural zone was huge,
90%,
and he suggested a zoning overlay,
correct.
which is probably. And it'd probably be 2 zoning overlays, so it's gonna be different for batteries than it is for solar.
Right.
And make an area where,
So who would?
This is where we're gonna put it, you're limited to,
and other towns have done that too.
Yeah.
I printed off some stuff
You
like
did?
that. that was. It's called the Cape Cod Commission, sort of like what we got Pioneer Valley. They work for a whole bunch of towns on Cape Cod. Who obviously like to protect their land, they have to, that's their water. That's their land, that's their forest, what's left of it. And they're stronger bylaws than what we have here. They're not super strong. You can't really keep anything out. It's got a good preface to it. And it kind of explains what the laws are and all that, and how they arrived at these bylaws. And then along with that, I printed it because I don't read off a computer, but I don't, I'll be honest, I'm not very good with a computer with technology. Otherwise I would have sent it to everybody. But,
That's why I printed it for you.
that's what, yeah, I printed, this is the document I'm talking about here. It's like, I don't know, 35 pages or something. I printed it so I could read it. Another one that's a decision that they made on a solar field. It's on the Cape too. That's the same. And, but they had conditions, it tells you about the conditions that they set.
Bylaws or conditions?
Conditions. They
Yeah,
went
they're-
by the bylaws, but they kind of set specific conditions based on the bylaws.
Okay,
Like this, like
You
you
mean-
mentioned, the screening for visual.
For each individual project, they set specific different conditions.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you know this, but there was another solar field proposed for the same property. 89 Chester Road in 2019, I believe it was.
Yes, it was.
And the conditions were set on that. And the developer at that time said, I don't want to deal with these conditions. And they walked away from it. So they can possibly be scared away. Blue Wave to me is another animal. They're worth, well, I looked at over $13 billion. They got a lot of money. And they're already suing the town. Well, they didn't get their way.
Something to add to that is early on, when we first started to realize there was this new sort of wave of new projects coming to Blandford, we talked about new bylaws. And what I kept hearing was, we don't need to update our bylaws. We can write in special permits. At any condition we want, basically, to regulate these.
You can't. It's gotta be based on bylaws in the law.
So that's basically my question. I mean, if you have a basic bylaw like we have now, in my mind, you can't write into a special permit more restrictive requirements than are what in the bylaw.
We can take the bylaw and some of them are pretty bare, but for instance, as far as screening, say on Chester Road, we could write in conditions that their proposal, I'll back up a little bit. Their proposal is a planting of an arborvitae tree every
Originally it was
12
flowers.
12 feet on center. Yeah. Whatever,
Which is nice.
flowers. But 12 feet on center. So. In the conditions, I like to propose a stagger and use
Mhm. I see what you're saying.
deciduous trees too, not just arborvitaes. And their proposal was 3 foot high. Well, 3 feet high isn't gonna cover anything 15 feet high. So it's gotta be bigger than that. So you can put these conditions in. They can appeal them to the state can overrule them. And they can, but we have to try. So we're gonna make conditions. The best we can to suit us. If they go away and they say it's not worth it, it might not be worth it to them. I don't know.
You better start growing them now. No.
Yeah,
Any conditions.
It's not cheap to plant big trees,
it's not.
if to keep them alive.
It's not. And then they gotta keep them alive. So that's another part of it, the maintenance thing that we had talked about before. So you just make requirements. If we write in our bylaws that the requirements are a maintenance contract. And I saw some other bylaws from, it might have been this Cape Town. That in the proposal, they had to have a name of a maintenance contractor. I mean, it's just little things that I'm seeing all over, but sort that I'm making note of. Stuff like that
A maintenance contractor for the,
for
The
the,
plant,
Trees?
the
for,
tree.
for the, yeah, for the landscaping, basically, yeah. Um,
you
Trey,
got- you
yeah, go
got-
ahead. Go ahead.
You go out on Huntington Road. It's not gonna matter.
No, you're not gonna see that thing. from the
Nobody's
road.
gonna see anything. Right? You're surrounded by forest.
Where is that?
Huntington Road.
Huntington.
I mean, that Chester Road is, it's a unique situation.
it is. It is.
And how big is the one on Huntington again, you guys? I don't remember.
It's like another. Like,
close to a 40-acre parcel total.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was like a 30.
A lot of it's, the solar's like way in the back. There's like wetlands up front in the field and then the solar
Yeah.
in the back.
And they all have batteries.
And
I
they
think
all
this
have
new,
batteries
this
that-
Well, they all have
new
batteries.
legislation requires them to have batteries.
They have to have
Size.
batteries.
Excuse me,
Over-
They all have to have batteries.
That's what I'm
to
saying.
store the energy.
Well, we have batteries down here.
prior to that legislation, they didn't have to have them.
Well,
My-
then,
My understanding is that, because one of the guys from that was here said, and he was from the engineering company, he said that the state says you must have batteries for anything over the size of, I thought he said 3.2 megawatts. We'd have to find out. That's the law. We could find out what that is.
The one on Tony's project, that's called utility scale. That's not tied into any solar. That's a different.
No, that's.
Right.
right,
That's a whole different animal.
that's stored through the grid into those batteries, and then they use it when you need
So
it.
they do their arbitrage. That's where they buy in one market, sell in another.
That's like a slush fund of energy is what it is.
So Trey, can you
Yeah.
just share like a couple of those, just a couple that you looked at that kind of interested you?
So one I haven't seen talked about is spill containment for like transformers. They're all full of oil. I think in most cases it's a mineral oil. So that would be something I don't know if that's addressed in our current bylaws. I have to check, but
Bill
spill
container?
containment, spill containment.
Okay. And can you just describe that for me? Cause I'm kind of the,
Yeah, usually it's like you can either have spill containment that's designed, like it's a plastic barrier that you set something in, it's like a shower pan almost, or you can have something that's built out of sand and has a liner, and then they build a berm around it for larger structures. Like you might see those types around large oil storage for refineries.
There are some state and federal regulations for containment, oil contain, depending on, it's triggered by the volume of oil stored.
So that's something we could look into. I don't know what some of these articles are, but then it says compliance with NEC Article 706-480, visible lockable AC/DC connects in regards to the electrical side of it. When things connect, disconnect, safety. Decommissioning, chain of custody for the batteries. Stewards recycling for recycling the equipment. Disposal pre-plans. Security, down shielded lighting, video, access controls for the site itself.
decommissioning is an interesting one because when let's say that, let's take it off the main road and talk about Huntington for a second. So, I don't know, the vendor disappears, something more important came up, they've come up with some other means of creating energy and they just abandon their solar fields, right? We're bonded, we do have we require a bond. Whether that bond is strong enough over a 25-year period or whatever they're supposed to be out there for, I don't know, that's something we'd have to look at. But let's say the bond is for 5 million. Throw it out there, right? And the actual decommissioning fee 25 years from now is 10 million. Who's responsible for that?
And the LLC goes bankrupt. So
And the LLC goes bankrupt. Well, if you're bonded though, you're insured, it's like an insurance policy. So
would have been not enough.
But you
what
only have the.
ability does the owner of the property have? I'm asking that question.
Blanford will be responsible.
Why?
That's why God made LLCs. Limited liabilities. They'll just walk away.
Or the landowner.
So he walks away, you take the land.
Somebody.
Well, I
And
did,
then the town deals with it.
I'll share when I was
Happens all the
I
time.
talked to the attorney. I'm representing the town, but I asked him, I said, so let's say that there is a catastrophic event, right? What culpability does the landowner have? And he says, if your house is destroyed for whatever reason, or your water, whatever, you sue the landowner. He goes, that's not what your role is. You manage the town. And I'm like, okay, I get it. But he says, yeah, you go after the landowner. So that was his answer, which is not his area of expertise because he's more municipal law. But that was his response.
So why don't you make her put up a bond, not a bond, but cash, an escrow, and estimate what the future value of decommissioning that is gonna be, and then escrow the funds. That'll get their attention.
That's what they do. That's the process.
For bonding.
But they come up with a number in the proposal. What I said before, I don't
So
believe
you
the
don't have to
number.
accept their proposal.
Pardon me?
Don't have to accept their proposal. If somebody makes an offer, and you're free to reject or accept. And counter offer.
So under current environmental laws in Massachusetts, if somebody came on your property with a truck and dumped hazardous waste, hazardous material on your property, and they drive away, you're responsible for that.
Right.
For contacting the agencies and for dealing. Doesn't mean you can't try to find who did it and go after them, but at least initially, you, as the owner, you're required to deal with that. Which is-
Well, the same thing holds, right? And that's basically what he was saying, is that you don't lose responsibility. You just gotta make sure you're covered if you're
Right.
gonna do it. So I'm just throwing it out there as things to think about, right? As we're laying out these rules. At the end of the day, it's all about protecting Blanford. That's it. In my mind. And understanding how all these things kind of work together. And.
Yeah.
I don't, my son's gonna take my house when we're gone. I don't want him to have to deal with a bunch of stuff sitting in the backyard, right? We don't want our kids that are gonna remain here to have to deal with this.
I have a feeling it's gonna be big piles of junk all over the place too, solar panels.
Well, yeah, but
Cause
if you
it's
have
gonna
enough
be
danger-
obsolete eventually, and they're gonna just go back to using nuclear.
you just have, right. That's what most engineers say today.
Yeah.
Or the technology's gonna
I
change
mean,
enough where this.
our naval fleet's been running on nuclear for what, 70 years, 70 years or so?
But that's
It's safe.
where I'm going here though, is, when we talked about having an individual who owns this stuff. It's also monitoring and following who owns this property now. Or who's leasing this property now, because. These deals that are struck have to go 25 years.
Yeah.
Right? And you have to know who you're dealing with over that 25-year period. to execute on whatever the conditions are. So this is not just go out and take a look at the field, it's also gonna be who owns that property, you know, or who's leasing that property, or who owns that property. And keeping track of all that.
And you gotta have teeth to enforce it, right?
You have to have the juice to enforce it, which
Yeah.
is the conditions that you put in the original contract. And the contract has to be the, what is it, the pilot has to be something that someone else has to take, has to pick up. It has to be written in such a way that if it changes hands, it doesn't change the rules of the contract. And I don't think we really thought about these things before. That's why we're discussing it now, because of the influx.
These are meetings are good, a lot to think about here.
Yeah.
Can we back up just for a second? I want to mention something back on Cabo Mountain, 'cause I wrote it down as you're talking about this. So there are the towns and cities that use Cabo Mountain might be concerned about the lack of response from Jackie's letter.
Mhm.
So we got Springfield, we got Agawam, that's all comes from Cabo Mountain.
Long Meadow, East Long Meadow,
So,
Agawam, Westfield
Springfield,
sometimes when they run
Part-
short.
part, yeah, I
About
think
9
even
towns.
parts of Westfield.
can we go through the
Palmer.
list again? Who are they?
Yeah.
Springfield,
Agawam,
Palmer,
Agawam. Who else?
I think,
Long Meadow, East.
I
Long
think
Meadow.
Chicopee, I'm not sure about Chicopee,
Chicopee got their own reservoir. I'm pretty sure.
but there's over 250,000 users for Cabo
I
Mountain.
should be able to find out
Yeah.
online, right?
Yeah, probably.
Okay,
It's all online.
that's where Trey and I are gonna become really good friends, because we both like. You can chat with that thing and ask it anything, it tells you.
You can play with that thing.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
That's okay, each for
Yeah.
oh, I asked it, I'm just waiting for it to respond. No.
Yeah. So
So,
Trey, do you mind working with me on some of this stuff from an
definitely,
investor?
I don't mind.
You don't mind? Okay, we'll figure it out in your schedule. Okay,
So one other thing, just to add, there's this entity called ISO New England. And they're the ones who control power movement through the grid. It's just surprising to me that we haven't seen them, their name or their involvement with any of this. I don't think they're like a regulatory entity, but they're the ones who actually, like, if there's a power outage and they kind of like have to shift where power goes around in the grid, they're the ones who control that. And it'd just be interesting to know what their involvement with all this is, but more so with the best than
it's ISO New England,
ISO.
ISO.
Had some involvement with.
So this is something,
Yes,
these are investigating things that we need to do, right?
right.
But to go back to the letter, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna carve in the mayors and or select board chairs when I send that letter to Springfield,
Yeah.
right?
think that's
I would
great.
even send it to all the towns. These select people are the select board of the towns that are part of the Cabo Mountain or the.
That's what I was, yeah. that's what I was-
Users.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
they can all
users?
check on each other. Copy them all.
Yeah.
Only
So-
cost $50 for a stamp.
So I have a question. And then we're gonna probably wrap it up pretty quick. Has anybody heard of NEPA,
Yes.
NEPA?
Yes.
What is that?
Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act. It's the state regulatory or authority that it's the highest level of review for projects in the state.
There's also.
There's NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act also, but NEPA is Massachusetts. And there's specific criteria and specific triggers that requires NEPA to get involved with a project. You can look it up and it'll list,
It's-
like if you're doing a subdivision and you're putting in X amount of linear feet of sewer pipe or drinking water pipe, there's triggers for that. If you're like one of the solar projects, the one out on Route 23 by Otis. They triggered it, two things that contributed to it, one was that they're cutting over 30 acres of land. And they need to get, call it, a permit to enter the property off the state highway. Those two things triggered it. It didn't turn out to be much in that case, but depending on how extensive the project is, it can require what's called an environmental impact statement, which I've seen them stacks of documents like a foot thick. And it like for like a
I didn't know about it to Fridge.
it's up to the developers to tell them. And I've asked several times with some of the other, like with Sincarfa on Chester Road, I specifically called the state and said, hey, you know, this is a pretty big project. Why isn't this subject to MEPA review? And they gave me the reasons why not, that it didn't trigger it. So, I
But
mean,
how would they even find out, Dick? How do they know a project's going on? The developer has to tell them,
the
or?
developer has to tell them, yeah, the developer has to file with them. You can look at, it's what's called the environmental monitor on the state's website. You'll see all the things that come in that are under the MEPA program and what their status is and what their requirements are.
Could we notify them as well?
Oh, sure.
Well,
And the
There's
EPA and the
local-
federal EPA as well?
the reason why I was saying it
That's
is
a very
that
good idea, whoever thought of it.
there was a gentleman that I was talking to, and he says, Jackie, he says, you could make them. You could make it. There was a gentleman that I was talking to that mentioned it to me, and he said, you could actually make it a requirement that they file with MEPA, the project.
That'll take them a few months to do an impact statement.
I think you could force them to notify MEPA, but as far as
That's it.
to go through the whole MEPA process and. So
Well,
what
if they
happened
notify them,
with that example, with that solar project, what happened, there's local reps for MEPA that do MEPA hearings and things like that. So he actually conducted a public hearing out at the site. And, you know, I asked a lot of questions of the developer, what about how big, where's the new curb cut gonna be off of 20, and, a lot of questions. And then pretty quickly they came back and said, well, we think this is like de minimis and doesn't need, a higher level review. So they just kind of rubber stamped it. The developer moved on in that case.
Have you
Could always be the case.
been on that North Blandford site, where the best project is?
Have I been on it? No, I've been around it. I've been up above on the upper part of it.
Boy, that's a tough, when I first heard that they were gonna use that as a site, I couldn't believe it. I mean, first of all, he doesn't own frontage on the road. He's got a 26-foot easement across what belongs to Eversource. And then about 30 years ago, I did a perk test for Tony. And what a time we had getting up there, water and supplies. We used an excavator to do the perk. And this thing is on a slope. And I can't imagine them putting 80,000-pound containers on a slope, building piers to.
That's a pretty long piece of property, and I think they're proposing the best is kind of like on the farthest western end of it. It's kind of like North Blandford Road goes around a curve there a little bit, and it's like on that
One
far
here?
end of it.
Well, it's 7:30, so what I wanna do is, I've taken notes along the way. I will type this up and try to put it in categories so we can focus, on possible areas to look at. My suggestion is that we may spend at the next meeting, like an hour in one particular area, so we can really kind of vet it out. So my question to you all is scheduling. what do your schedules look like?
Yeah.
And when would you like to meet again?
Can't do the 28th. 28th is out for.
It's out for you, the 28th is out for you? What's everybody else look like?
I'm fairly available any day at this time, it's 6,
Okay,
except for Mondays.
Do Wednesdays, are Wednesdays okay for everybody? We missed this last one because it was my fault, but Wednesday's okay for everybody
Yes.
at night?
yeah,
Okay, so 6 PM on a Wednesday. Do you want to do 2 weeks from now?
Yeah, that works.
yeah, the 29th.
Mhm. I will send out the notes. Trey, if I could really work a little bit with you, that would be great.
Yeah, I just sent you a picture, but I sent it from a different number, so it's gonna show up and you won't know who it came from.
Okay. Got it.
Before we end, Jackie, do we know if there are like consulting firms that help town draft bylaws?
Certainly can find out. A good idea.
But there are.
I'll bet you the group.
It's email, so I think you will find it now.
There too.
I
Right.
will.
I mean, I was just thinking about this the other day, how much money some of
Oh,
these places are making because every town's doing the same thing.
Yeah, well, just try to find a well and
That'd be fantastic. Yep.
It's easy enough to call it.
Yeah.
they can work for like the town and not be conflicted because they're working for Blue Lady or something.
Right. Did you have a question, Kim?
No,
You're good Wednesday night?
I'm good with it.
All right. All right, it is 7:35. We're gonna adjourn the meeting.
Jackie, who wrote this letter
Or.
What is it?
for the Mark Farman?
See what happens.
Christina.
Excellent letter. Did a good job.
No, right.
Right.
Ready?
Here's the Plainfield plan for group study.
Don't be ridiculous, but.
Right.
That's Eversource.
Yeah.
That's Eversource, yeah.
And,
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Trash in here somewhere.
I'll be taking that letter, by the way, to the board for approval. I can't refuse, delay for the meeting.
For GE
Houston.
in Pittsfield.
Yep. 35 years.
One brought up in Adams and Pittsfield.
I grew up in Pittsfield.
we didn't come to, this